And we're
What?
back. This is Connor versus Cobb. I am Ryan Connor.
Nick Cobb is right here in the dark room in my head
There he
studio.
is. It's Nick Cobb.
You ever done a show that's just an awful setup, and yet, and you do okay, and then you want to go out and explain to people, like, do you know how good you have to be just like to be okay on this show?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm doing intermission and a spelling bee kind of a thing. Like it's
Yeah.
so hard. Like this is Madden level stuff,
Did
and
it
like
just
just to be
happen?
okay, just to put up 6 is good. What's that?
Did it just happen?
No, I was speaking about I was actually making a comparison with just how difficult it is to get a working setup in my place. Unlike yours, which
Oh, okay.
always looks beautiful. You got the pink in the background, that bright green, the white, everything just pops.
I thought
It's
you were
really
gonna.
nice.
Thank you. I thought you were gonna say something about like having that experience because it jogged. There's one. I mean, I've had a couple. I remember I did this one. It was like a corporate that was tacked onto a college where the tables were round, so half the people were facing away from me, and they didn't realize they needed to turn their chairs around. They just kind of like tilted their heads, and it was very weird because they also insist on serving dinner right when I started. It
Yeah.
was the worst setup. But even worse than that, sometime in my first like year and a half, I did a show. I may have told you this before, but in this place Manassas, Virginia, which is it's
Okay.
near where I'm from, but culturally worlds apart. And I remember one comic somewhere in his joke he mentioned what his address was, and the crowd laughed. And then I asked someone else who was there, I was like, why did everyone laugh at the address? And they said, that's the jail. And it's like, you guys know the address of the jail? And so that's who's there. I remember the bathroom stalls did not have doors on them, and I ate something that wrecked my stomach, and
What?
I had to
So
get a
like an
comp.
elementary school stall or
Yeah, it
junior
was
high
like they've
school stall,
been
they
ripped
like
off.
where they don't have the door because they don't want kids like vaping in there?
Yeah. That was the
Oh.
look of it. So I had to get, I think it was Rory or our friend Herbie to like stand outside the main door. And I remember I used to have a blog that I wrote like every day back then. And I remember the title for that one was "The Bathrooms in Hell Don't Have Doors." So there's no door
Yeah, you're right.
into the venue with a bar or on the stall. It's fully open. So the stage was the worst part. You went up. Keep in mind, it's a bar. It's like the side room in a bar. You would go
Okay.
up these steps too high, like to the point where you're touching the ceiling. So it's like a 4-foot platform in a bar. It's no more than a foot and a half deep. Why? Because you were standing in a former showcase, like where trophies would be. That was our stage inside a showcase.
Wow. Wow.
And it was just like, man, if you don't literally die up here, you're doing great.
And how did it go? If you were to compare it with what
Oh,
kind of
I
are
don't
we
remember,
talking?
but it couldn't, you know what I mean? It's all relative.
Of course, it's all relative, but like if you got a laugh, you felt great about it. It's like when
It
you
was
you put you throw your 100-mile-an-hour fastball, you throw your bet like your one of your best jokes out there in the first minute or 2 minutes, and what is it gonna get? Like one
yeah,
clap, nothing.
I mean, at best, I would say probably a 7. A 7 is killing. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Well, that's not as bad as I thought you were
But
gonna.
I
I
don't
thought you were
remember,
gonna
man.
say
This is
like a
20 years
three
ago.
is going.
I don't
Yeah.
remember
All
the
right. Yeah. Yeah.
details.
Man, I did. Sometimes you just want to kind of educate you. I don't ever like talking to a crowd after a show. I don't
Mm-hmm.
particularly like talking to a crowd before a show. I like it to be old school. Like, they come to the show, I come out, I do my thing, I go back, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, I'm a pretty social person. But this is the one instance where it's like I wish I could educate them a little bit, just
Mm-hmm.
one little thing about the business of show that
Yeah.
I'd really like you to know, and that is something like that of like you just don't know how hard this setup is, like the bar that doesn't turn off like you know like any of the football games, They keep
Mhm.
those on. They keep the music on. And then when you ask the booker about it, they're like, "Well, funny's funny. If you're funny, you're
Right.
gonna do great anyway." It's like, so it doesn't matter that like we got karaoke going like in the next room and everybody can,
Right.
they just
Right.
they don't want to know. They don't they don't want you to explain it to them.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I guess unless you're famous, like they're just not going to hear you. But last night I did this show. There's a lot of gimmick shows where
Mhm.
whatever, get anybody out, and it's really well run. But it's a generation versus generation show,
You remember when
and
every show had to have a gimmick? Like 10 years ago,
yes, I
you'd want to
do.
do a show and they would be like, "All right, what's the angle?" You're like, People doing stand up." They're like, "No, we need some, like
Yeah.
is it tall people who smell like potatoes? Is it like what
When
why
I remember
does it
when I
have to
was
be
in New
this
York, I felt
specific?"
like it was either club shows, alt shows, or if it was a smaller club, it was all any gimmick, if you want to put that in quotes, was all race related. It was all like white show, the Dominican show, finally, the Middle
You're
East
right.
tour. It was
Yeah.
all racial. Like
Yeah.
it feels weird to say that's even gimmick, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was like we got Urban Night,
Which is all
Koreatown night.
yeah,
It was all race. It wasn't even something. Wait, you
hilarious.
didn't have to go very far to understand it. It was pretty much right in front of you. But last night, so they did this generation versus generation, and I've done it before, and it's always been good. The guy's a good producer, and so it's Gen X versus millennial. And so the producer goes up and he's emceeing. He does like 20 up front. Um, and then he has his Gen Xers, myself included, go in the first two spots. I go up first. And
Mhm.
it's really fun. It goes well. And then the other Gen Xer goes. And then the two millennials go back to back. And so then they trot you all four up there on stage and they put their hand over your head and like, who do you think was better? Give a big applause for millennials. And they just go ape shit. And then he does kind of like a little back and forth with them. And this girl up front, she sounded young. Was like, well, they were just better. And I mean, I mostly thought it was hilarious, but there was a part of me that wanted to be like, let me explain to you the difference between going first and going last, or going first and going third. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted so badly to explain. Do you know what a bullet spot is? Because that's what I
Yeah.
did. You're comparing
Yeah.
that with somebody who doesn't have to deal with anything.
Yeah.
It's a
I don't
big like I really wanted to be like graded on a curve for this girl.
You know what it is? It's like saying, which song did you like better? The one that you listened to in the grocery store over the grocery store speakers while you were grocery shopping, or the one you heard at the concert?
Right.
Like
Right.
you're that much of a handicap. I mean, you'd be like, yeah, I like the Jessica Simpson song better than the Radiohead song I heard at the grocery store because it was at a
Right.
grocery store.
Yeah. I really wanted to explain it. I just, as much as I didn't care, I thought it was so silly the whole time. Like I gotta wait, I gotta go up there at the end, got to do this whole thing where they applaud one of, and I gotta pretend like I'm happy or say whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't want to deal with any of that. I just wanted to go. And yet when I when I got up there and she said they were better, I was so infuriated that she didn't understand how much harder it was.
You shouldn't be doing shows like
What
this,
we
man.
it was to bring it back, like it was us on Madden level, or at least
Yeah.
me on Madden level going first, and them on what would that be, like college level,
Yeah. Yeah.
rookie level.
Rookie.
That's how big of a difference we're talking. And
Yeah.
yet she
You're
just
you're
doesn't,
too you're too good at stand up to be doing these shows. Let's be honest.
I mean, thanks,
You
appreciate
know,
it.
you
Do
can
you
I
know what I
tell you?
mean though? Sometimes you
Oh
just want
yeah.
to be like, look, I don't. Instead of giving you the bullshit MC housekeeping stuff of like,
Yeah.
you know, you know, table talk to a minimum, 2 drink minimum, bathrooms over there. Why do instead of that, can I just explain to you a few things about how stand up actually works?
Yeah.
Because
I
I would rather tell you that. I'm going to assume that you're not going to talk too much. What I'd
yeah.
rather tell you is how much harder it is to MC than it is to feature. And the
Oh,
feature act actually has by far and away the easiest job on
in
any
comedy.
show. ever.
in
That's
comedy.
what I'd like to. That's what I'd like to
Because
hear an MC say.
headliner, the first 20 minutes of your set is also gravy, and then once
Yes.
that check drop happens, I mean, you may as well be like standing in the parking lot while
Yeah.
yelling your jokes through the door. Um, I hope the people who aren't stand-ups find this interesting. I think they must, because it's nice to have an insight. Like I was at a concert recently, and the singer was like, he was very drunk, and he's like, "This is our last song, whatever." And then he goes, "Actually, it's not really our last song. We're gonna do a fake encore thing." He's like, "Just so you know, you don't really have to clap when we go off stage." He's like, "Everyone thinks that the encore is dependent upon the crowd clapping." He's like, "All this is people need to pee. So the length of time it takes it depends on how many people in the band have to pee. So anytime you're at a concert, just know that's what's happening."
I love that guy.
It's awesome.
I
Yeah,
love it.
Connor Oberst. So let me tell you about
Was
another
it great?
show.
I mean, do people still get
Was
amped, like when they're
phenomenal.
like surprised
Yeah, because then
about
you're
the encore?
laughing. Because then you're
Yeah.
laughing. You know what I mean? It just adds a human element to. Like, I also saw his band, like it was like an LA Fire benefit. It was in Glendale a couple months ago, and they just happened to already be passing through LA, so they were part of this like probably 800 seat thing, like along with,
Mhm.
it was like Jim James and a bunch of other big people who were based in LA, but Bright Eyes just happened to be in town, and they were having a hard time getting some stuff set up, and it was like this weird silence, and then he points to an instrument on stage, and he points to a banjo, and he goes, "And who can tell me what this instrument's called?" And he just starts doing
I love it. I love it.
But so I did this show, man, it must be like 14 years ago now. It was in somewhere near Baltimore. A very nice guy ran these shows in Maryland, and I'd never done any of his, and I was in the area, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And there were some weird things leading up to it that I don't need to get into, that were like telling me like this might not be a great show. But I pull up, and the place looks great. The stage is like, I mean, it's like a proper place where bands play and stuff. And I'm thinking this can be great. And they had, it was like a bar that turns into a music venue at night. And I'm thinking, well, they'll unplug the video game over there in the corner, and like, it's like proper stage lighting and stuff like that, right? So I get there, and I said, "Okay, cool. Is there like where do we hang out?" And he goes, "I usually have the comics, when they're not performing, they'll sit at that table on the stage. So then when you're introduced, you just stand up." So, like, if you ever saw a comic view where there's like people sitting on stage, it's that,
What?
but it was the comics sitting on stage.
So like a bullpen.
I swear to God, yes. So it was
Wow.
comics, plus if you had friends with you, it was like a table for like 5 or 6 or something. He was like, "You'll sit right beside where you're going on." And I said, "Can we do something just for tonight? Let's make it so that this table is not on the stage, and we just hang out in the back." And he goes, "I think they really like the festive atmosphere of the comics being on stage." And
I like this change of pace.
I was like, "Please no." So I get that concession, and then it's time for sound check. I'm like, "Oh, the sound is great." I said, "Can we see what the lights will look like?" And he goes, "You're seeing it." And I go, well, no, I mean, the stage lights aren't on, and the house lights are on. And he goes, "Yeah, we usually just do it with the house lights on."
What?
And I said,
And
"No."
he had
I
done
said,
shows before?
he was a comic. And I said, "No, man, we got to kill the house lights and use the stage lights." I'm like, "That's what the stage lights are for. It makes it look like a performance, and everyone focuses." He goes, "Yeah, I know what you mean, but the thing is, if you turn the house lights off and you turn the stage lights on, you can't see the room." And I
That's
said, "Yeah,
awesome when that
that's
happens.
the point. You want it to be pitch dark,
You
except
didn't have to
on the
say that
stage."
to him.
I
You
swear
didn't
to
actually
God, man. I swear to God. And then there was
Was
a
he a
row
big
of
crowd
TVs.
work guy and he had to see the people?
No, just somebody who's just not that good, at stand up. Nice guy who's just not quite, at the level where he's like having sets that are good
I
enough that
don't
these
think
things
this
would
is
be
a good or
obvious.
bad thing. This is
Oh, hey, we're not even there yet.
this
We're
is
not even
talking
there
this
yet.
is kind of like the showcase, like standing on a showcase as a stage. Like if you're working a theater and it's
Yeah.
all house lights and no stage lights, good luck with that.
Yeah,
That's
walk out,
gonna
just
be hell on
leave.
earth.
Just leave. So I said, I eventually I got him to make a deal where we do stage lights on and just have the house lights barely on, because he's like, servers need to know where they're going. I'm like, okay, just a little bit of light, though I prefer none at all. So then I said, you're going to turn off all the TVs, right? And he goes, well, no, we keep the TVs on. And I said, we got to turn them off if we're doing a show. And he said, well, how will people know who's winning? I
What
said, I mean,
sport was being played? That's a
it
really
was it
important
was
question.
football season in
Oh boy.
Maryland. I know, and I said they'll just have to find out after the game or after the show. And I got them to turn off the TVs, and he said, "This is not going to be a popular decision." And I said, "Okay, and you're going to unplug Golden Tee?" And he goes, "No, we can't unplug Golden Tee." I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "People will freak if the high scores get reset." And I'm thinking, no, they won't. No, if they do, it's time to reevaluate your life, right?
Can't you
So
put something over it then? I mean, I can
uh,
kind of understand that.
I said, can you? Yeah, I said, can we be blocked? Can we put a sign that says you can't play? And they said, no, the bar is not going to want that, because sometimes people just come for Golden Tee. And I said, well, they're not going to play Golden Tee during my set. And he's like, man, look, he's just kind of doing that. He stands
You're
back.
crossing lines ever since you walked in here.
Then
You
then
want the
the feature
stage lights
guy,
on, the
the
house lights
feature gets
off.
there. This dude Adam, who truly does not give a shit, right? I tell him about this. He just goes over and unplugs Golden Tee,
Love it.
and it was
Love it.
great.
That's what a
I
feature
was
should do.
I know, Adam Dodd. Let's just salute to you, sir. He just goes over, unplugs it, so the show starts, right? And Adam actually does all right, because he's a guitar comic, so he's in a rowdy type room because it's packed, right? Here's the thing: on the right side of the stage, there's a wall, so I can't see like 30% of the room. Okay, it
Okay.
blocks a decent amount of it. Music works, and it gets people's attention in a place like this. He did pretty well. I go up. I think I start maybe decently. I don't remember how much time I'm doing, but it's like a full headline set, probably 45. And only the people in the front are even paying attention. And about, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes in my set, a fight, like a physical fight, broke out.
Nice.
But it's to the right of the stage on the other side of that wall. So everyone can see it except for me. Everyone can see it. At one point, a T-shirt went flying through the air back into the bar.
Wow. And were you
And
just having to ask people what was happening, or were you trying
yes,
to sell jokes? Yeah.
no, I'm not trying to tell jokes. I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm like, I want to go around the corner and see, but I don't want to get shot or something. And I don't remember. I guess someone ended up fully kicking them out. But anyway, this was 5 minutes during my set, a full on tussle.
Wow.
Oh, and then I just remember this after the show when he's giving me my money. He gave me an extra. It was like $60 or $80 because he said I threw in some extra for your trouble.
He wasn't pissed about the Golden Tee or anything? Like
No,
I'm
because
surprised.
he thought the bar was going to be mad at him. And
I
I think the
see.
bar
I mean,
did not care at all.
I did one that was pretty similar to this. It'd be kind of like doing, I don't know. It was a huge space. The rooms weren't, it was all one big room, but it should have had walls and such. They were, I don't know. It'd be like doing a Wingstop or something. Like there was a huge bar, a fairly big stage, and they kept all the house lights on. They kept all the TVs on. They kept every game on. I think they had skee ball there. They definitely had like
Yeah.
electronic darts. They had billiards. Everything was on.
Yeah.
And there were people sitting on the other side of the bar as well. Like it just, the closest person was 4 feet away, and the furthest was, I don't know, 70. And just like it was deeper on the right side. I mean, it was, but the worst part was the lights, where they refused to turn off any of the lights, and yet they still had one stage light that
Yeah.
was maybe about a foot in diameter, and you could get it on just on your face. It was blue.
Oh, the light itself, not
The
the
light itself. It was just the light would just cover your face
just on your
if you held
face.
it and didn't move
So
at all.
you're like the man in the moon.
Dude, it was just this.
That's so
And my
funny.
friend who set me up with it was just like, oh yeah, it's no problem. It's easy. It's blah, blah, blah. It's, and I mean, they're like, dude, you can't be, you can't be dirty at all. You got to be squeaky clean. Yet the guy who goes before me, filthy as can be. He's like, don't do any crowd work. Did nothing but crowd work.
Yeah.
And he's coming up to me like, you can't do any crowd work. You got to be super clean. I'm like, what are you talking? Like,
Looking about.
do you just have your fingers in yours? Do you not see what just happened?
Yeah.
So he did crowd work and he was filthy, but I can't do either one. And I have to stay in a 1 foot diameter light. It's really astonishing. And then they just blame it all on you.
Right.
I'm like, well, hey, I asked you to turn off the game. Well, they like to look at it. I did turn the audio off. That was the big selling point. I turned the audio off on the game. So then they're just talking louder because they don't have anyone announcing the game that they can hear.
Well,
it was just.
I did a casino in Yonkers. It was me and Dave Siegel. Dave hosted. I was featuring. The headliner was just a terrible crowd work person. But I don't know if you've ever done that Yonkers casino, but it's in this massive room that probably holds 2,000 if you seat it fully.
Yes.
But at the show, there's probably 50 people, and they would put them all in the middle. So you walk in the room and you have to walk like an entire football field to get to the seats. It's like a college graduation, like where you're walking up the middle of the field to your seats.
It's a dreadful walk too. It's a dreadful. It's like the last leg of a marathon, and you're just wishing that people would be on either side of you to like pat you on the back, like, hey man, it's just 20 minutes. It's going to be okay. Because from the moment you walk into that room, this is going to be a 0 out of 0. This is what my son says. On a scale of 0 to 10, it's a 0. Yeah.
It's like, why not just put the seats right at the door when you walk in? That makes sense. Then again, but if you run a show right, then there ends up being margin for error. So my favorite show in DC when I started was this place, Dr. Dreamos. And it was on Wednesday nights. There were probably about 100 people every week, like packed.
Wow.
And probably half of them were regulars. They'd come back every week. This is like how, me and Rory and Aparna and Jeff Maurer and a bunch of us kind of built up our materials because you had to do new stuff every week. And super fun show. And the crowd loved it every week because the setup was great. The comics were great. One night, the electricity went out at the bar. But the fact that they ran it so well, and the showroom was on a separate floor, by the way. So the fact they ran it so well, the crowd didn't care. There was no electricity. We used a mag light and just did the show with no power. Man. And it was fucking great, except the mag light is very hot.
Sure. I was having this conversation last night that, like, in the green room of, like, the best shows, aside from clubs, always seem to be run by complete tight asses. Yeah. Like, I'll never, like, I'm sure you did Kurt Shackelford's show.
That's who I'm talking about. Kurt ran this room.
Oh, really? That's what I was going to bring up.
He's the best did he have the show street producer. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You felt like you were signing a contract to do one show. He had so many rules and he read them all to the crowd. It
Yep.
somehow you're like he's reading like legalese to these people. Like you're like, I can't believe that they're going to be
Yeah.
bored of tears. They're going to be asleep, whatever. And it was always great. And he had a huge street light in the back.
Yep. Always do.
I don't know what
He'd
it
run
was, but it
3
was just
shows
the
a week,
easiest
and
room.
they're all amazing. Amazing guy. He would send the comics like a 5-page Word
Yes.
doc, letting
Yeah.
you know what you can and can't. I mean, it's hilarious.
And he would
No
read that
material
to the guests.
restrictions. It was about like when to arrive, what to do when you arrive, what he looks like, so you can find him. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. He's great. And to my point about how if you run it great, then you end up having these you have a little wiggle room. So the show that you and I and our friend Brendan used to run in LA, now Teresa Lee is the third producer, and we've been looking for a new home for a year and a half because our old venue changed hands and just didn't seem like the right fit anymore.
The wine bar.
We finally found a home this week. It's a club called the Nightcap. It's in Burbank, and it is awesome. I mean, it could not be a better setup. It's incredible.
Nice,
Just
man.
like a small, tight club that's run perfectly. It was amazing. I remember, like, it's a small room.
That's an ideal environment for all involved. Like every crowd member wants to be there for a show that is a small show and ends up being, it's the mighty small show, the show that could. Like those are always the most memorable ones.
It was a rainy Wednesday night in LA.
Yeah.
And everybody killed.
It's great. There was that club in Erie, Pennsylvania that I did a few times, and they did something that was kind of like it. I mean, it's a little more risky, and perhaps it was because they didn't want to pay an MC, but they would have people from the crowd MC. Like someone from the crowd would win. Like they put their name in a bowl, they pull it out, and then the next week, each night they would have, or sometimes each show they'd have a different MC, and they would tell them, they'd be like, "You can do as little time as you want. You don't have to do any. You can go up." So there'd be people who go up and be like, "Yeah, I just opened up a brewery down the road. Why don't you come out? Okay, this whatever his name is coming out."
Good.
Whenever I was there was as a feature. So you're basically emceeing, and you're also covering up for people who like printed off internet jokes. Dude, one time, and we may end up having to cut this out, but one time I came in like, who's the MC tonight? Because that was always the big question. Now it's so-and-so. We had to build a big ramp because he's in a wheelchair. I'm like, all right. And but he does jokes. I'm like, that's really all I want to hear.
Did you just say there's an Oriole outside my window?
Oh,
sorry.
No, sure.
Okay. You said he's in a wheelchair, but he does jokes.
Yeah, exactly. He's in a wheelchair, but he does jokes. Yeah. Okay. So this guy, goes and they build this huge ramp. It's a huge room. It's kind of like the ENCORE'S room. It's almost as big as that, very wide. And they built this huge ramp. And, they're like, give it up for your MC. And everybody's applauding. And of course, they keep the applause going because it takes them a moment to get all the way up to the stage. This is a long, I'd say a 30-foot ramp. And it's not even a high stage. It's just a very long ramp. And I guess they just didn't have any reasonable ramps, but the only one they had was 30 feet. And so he goes up there and he tells jokes. And I'm like, thank God. The last two nights, these people, they didn't even do any jokes. And so it's just nice to have the crowd like hearing a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes up there and he tells a few jokes and, it goes pretty well. He does about like 10 minutes. And then he introduces me and I go up. I get right up thinking I need to get up right up. So I get right up and I say, keep it going for him. But the pause ends well before he's even turned around on the stage because he has to back up. I mean, it's a small stage. He's a wheelchair. So he's just, I can't go into my act when he's just there maneuvering around me. I'm like having to lean over
stage.
It's an electric chair, man.
Oh, it's an electric chair. Because I was saying, I have a friend here who's in a wheelchair, and I've helped him on and off. But I can imagine if not,
of course that would help him off. But like, I couldn't do that. And there's a word like this sound. There's the sound of the electric wheelchair. So I started to say, "Hey, how's it going?" And then you just hear like as he's backing up, and I'm like. And I was like, guys, let's keep it going for him, And then, I mean, I figure like they should know why I'm asking them to keep, like, he needs a minute. Just give him a
Yeah.
minute. Come on. And then they applaud less time than they did before, like 5 seconds, and then by that time he's still on the stage and you still hear the brr. And by then I'm like trying to think of new things to applaud for. I'm like, give it up for me for applaud for coming up here tonight. Still, and they had to ask him to continue applauding 5 times. And even then, because the ramp was so fucking long, you still heard the sound in the corner of the room of him making his way out. And he did a great job, but that was an excruciating 3 minutes of
That
being
is
like,
the
can we all just be on the same
funniest.
page of what's
3 minutes?
happening here?
You really think 3 minutes?
Yes, absolutely. Because the ramp, and I'm not exaggerating, 30 feet long. And you're going to pick up that noise, and it's a
You can't
huge
do
room, and he
anything.
has to get all the way out. He either has to get all the way out or come to a stop.
Do you just silently watch him like a ship leaving port?
There were towards the end, after like the fourth applause, I'm just watching him, and everybody can see I'm watching him until there's a safe point where I can bring up anything that they would pay attention to.
Did you think of saying anything like, would have been a good night to bring a manual chair, right? For the
Yeah.
sound purposes? I'm just kidding. So I got to tell you two things.
That was a tough one. Yeah.
It's like you knew, I swear to God, it's like you saw my set list here. So, well, first it reminded me of there's a guy, Mike Aronin, who's a very funny comic with cerebral palsy. And I remember he did a show. It might have actually been Erie. It was somewhere in Pennsylvania. And someone in the crowd yelled at him after the show because he thought he was doing a character. And he was like, it's not funny to make fun of the handicap. And
what?
He's like, I'm not going to mimic the way he speaks, but, he was like, I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, man. I can't. I also went to a show in Pennsylvania. I forget where it was. And I was really early in. I was emceeing the show. And this is back when like people threw the R word around like all the time.
Yeah.
Certainly comics. It was starting to transition into something you shouldn't do. But what was the guy who was on Daily Show early on, like the angry
Louis Black.
Louis Black, thank you. And he had a whole bit about how the R word was okay, and if you don't understand it, then you are all that stuff. But basically, it was transitioning out, and there was a guy who was the headliner of that room that weekend, who his whole spiel was to put on an old school football helmet. Like I'm talking like the one bar or like Leatherhead, right? He put on an old school football helmet, and his whole hour-long thing was he has a brain injury from football. And just
wait a minute,
doing
what's this guy's name?
I forget his name.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He was an actual football coach, and later on, apparently, I think he like got in trouble for selling like 8 balls to his players. But his hour-long set was about just him just saying crazy shit, slurring words.
I've seen this guy's headshot at a club, like
I'm sure you have.
B club somewhere. Yeah,
look, he killed. He absolutely killed that completely. But I do remember a couple coming up to him, like coming up to me, like after my set, and saying that like their kid was Down syndrome and stuff, and they're really sensitive about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
And then I knew as soon as he went up, I'm like, oh no, this is not. And like we were saying before, crowds don't know. They think we work together all the time. They think I'm like an opening band, and and so they had just told me this. Like, please don't say this. We're really sensitive about it. In fact, the husband did. He was like, my wife's really sensitive. Of course, won't say it, blah blah blah. And then, but I knew what was coming. Yeah. And so I go to the bathroom and come back. It's like 2 minutes into this headliner set, and him and his wife leave the room. She is bawling, and she says to me, like, how could you guys do something like this? How could you talk about people this way? Something like this is pointed at me because she thought I just worked with this guy all the time.
She just doesn't know, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I don't understand why people have the need to do things like I'm not a language police person either, but it's like if you learn that certain language hurts people's feelings, why do
Right.
it? Why say it? It's like what are you getting from hurting people? I
Oh,
don't
they're
know.
trying to prove something.
Yeah.
They're trying to prove
Well,
that like the olden days were better, back when you could, speak freely and people
yeah.
could just
Back
laugh
when
at
you could
whatever
be
they want.
awful to people with no
Right.
consequences. So
Right.
this brings me to this. We were going to go to Disneyland tomorrow because with Rachel's niece and nephew. Her mom flew down yesterday as well. Her mom flew back at 6 a.m. this morning because Rachel tested positive for COVID yesterday.
Ah.
But here was the catch. I was on the fence because of my nerve issue in my foot, right? I still have to get 2 more shots. And
Do you have to get them in your heel?
no. It's arguably worse. It's in my plantar
Please don't say
nerve.
it's in your little toe. What's that?
No, plantar nerve. So they go through the top of my foot between my third and fourth toe and go
Oh my
down until
God.
they hit the nerve, which is towards the bottom,
Oh man,
and
that's some
they jam
heroin
it into
stuff
the
right there.
nerve. Um,
Oh.
it feels more weird than painful. It's very, very weird though. He was like, you might want to get in a very comfortable position. But anyway, I still can't really walk. I can walk maybe a tenth of a mile before it's excruciating. Like my toe dislocated again yesterday when I
And yet
walked.
that would not
Like
be long enough for you to get to the stage on the ENCORE'S Raceway.
right. So
It
my
is
plan
that
for
deep of a
Disneyland,
road.
I was like, so the doctor was like, all you can do until you go through these shots is wear Birkenstocks. So I got
Oh, right.
Birkenstocks, and he said because they have this mid arch support, and basically the ergonomics of them, but you take the stress off the nerve. So my plan was if I think I can manage to go, I will try it and I will wear Birkenstocks, and if I end up having trouble, I will get a rascal. But
Ooh.
now we're not going because Rachel has COVID. But I was almost at Disneyland in a.
That would have been fun.
I
That would have
know,
been
right?
really fun in the Rascal. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say, I think it was last time we were talking about Showgirls, and I wish we had just paused it so I could collect myself. I just got so excited trying to explain to anyone that didn't understand, like, what kind of a person Elizabeth Berkley was in every teenager's life before she did this movie. And I was just trying sort of to
Yeah.
think of some kind of a comp. And there isn't a comp for today. But the one I kept
No.
on fumbling with was that if Fred Savage from the Wonder Years
Yeah.
had, like, just right after the Wonder, you just known as just like this sweet kid,
He's
like
Dirk
figuring
Diggler.
out high school, kind of a nerd. If he immediately just announced to everybody that he's following his passion and doing the donkey show in Tijuana, and that was like broadcast everywhere. That is the only comp I can think of.
What is
Is
the
Fred Savage
donkey
is like,
show?
we're gonna bring cameras that you've never heard of the donkey show? Oh,
It
it's a
sounds
yeah, I feel like Rachel
graphic.
would know. Everybody knows what this is. Certainly LA people.
No,
Like this is
she
it's
doesn't
a
know what it is.
widely known
She
sex
definitely
show
doesn't know.
where a woman has sex with a donkey. All you have to ever say is the donkey show, and people know exactly what you're talking about.
What?
You don't know about that?
No, I thought that
Oh,
wouldn't that kill a person?
I don't
You'd
know.
think it
I
would
think this
impale
woman's got her
someone.
reps. She's got tenure. Like she's been doing it a while. I don't. It may be different women, but like this has been going on a long time.
Are you sure this isn't an urban legend?
No, I am
This is something
positive.
I refuse to Google. You
All
sure this
right,
is
you're just gonna
real?
take my word. Yes. In fact, when I thought of it, I was like, finally, there's a comp that everyone would understand except for Ryan, apparently. Like, this is a well known thing. If Fred Savage did his Wonder Years finale and was like, I'm off to do the donkey show, that's all he would have to, everybody would know I'm talking about. They're like, hey, and then somebody would be like, hey, just like Elizabeth Berkley did. It'd be the same thing. It's the same drop off.
I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I just didn't know this existed. I'm shocked that it exists. I'm shocked that it's legal. I'm
You
shocked
just
that
never,
whoever's that they're not someone's not just dying every night like a gladiator sport.
I grew up in a time, we both in the 80s and 90s, where there was a sex scene in just about every movie, just about every single movie, unless it's
Yeah,
G
yeah.
rated. There was, I think Rob Lowe even said, if you wanted to know if there was a sex scene, you'd look on a certain page of a script. It was like 117 or something. He said it in a podcast. He was like, if there was a sex scene, it would be just go to that page in the script and you would know immediately. Because he
That's
was kind of like
hilarious.
halfway bitching about the fact there's no more sex scenes anymore. But
That's
like,
hilarious.
but in an era where there was sex scenes constantly, which we grew up in, Showgirls, I can't think of another example of a movie that showed as much bush that still had some semblance of a story.
Mm-hmm.
It's the in the fact that Rachel got to see it for the first time in front of a crowd of veterans. I just wish I were there.
Do you have a hypothetical question for me, Nick?
Yeah, I do. Um,
What is it?
oh, by the way, I know I mentioned this to you before. This morning, I'm going to a funeral on Sunday, Monday,
Yeah.
and so my mom and I have been talking a little bit, and she did this one today where she goes, "Can you believe it's already March?" It just never gets old. Like it has been for 2 weeks, and I don't know like what what do we talk? It's not Halloween. What do you mean it's
Are,
already March? It's already 60 days into the year. Like,
are
I just
you? Do you
it
do a joke
always makes
about
me
this yet?
laugh.
Can you believe it's 9 a.m.? Can you
Yeah,
believe it's noon?
it's you have to use already. Already is always in it.
Yeah.
It's
My
always in it.
my mom is flabbergasted by the passage of time.
She really
Still
is.
has not adjusted.
Just
She just
continually impressed by it. Oh, I want dude, I got to tell you
every
this
time
real
she
quick.
looks at a clock, she's like, "That hand keeps moving." I don't know why.
I don't understand, but I'm so amazed. It's already
Yeah.
8 a.m. Uh, dude, I watched this. I was listening to this podcast earlier where somebody was talking about someone else, whatever, basketball player, and they were saying that this person is like really hated around the league, and they said this exactly. They're like, no, I don't want to use the word hate. I'll use the word despise. As if it's somehow level below hate rather
I
than
can't.
worse than hate.
Yeah, yeah. I think I would call that that's a slight escalation from hate, right?
Yeah, I don't want to use
Yeah.
dislike. I'll use loathe. I just like, if anything, you're making it more intense. But to
You're
position
right.
yourself as like, and there wasn't like a
Yeah.
fumbling for a synonym. It wasn't like that. That she
Yeah.
had that word picked out. She wanted to say that phrase like people always do. I don't want to say hate. Hate's a
Despise.
strong word. So I'll say I want to murder him. I got one. So you get the option to time travel for you have a minute and a half to talk to yourself when you were 16. Let's say you're a 16-year-old kid, you're in a government class in high school, and you ever get called out in the hallway, the principal comes in, knocks on the door, hey, can I have Ryan for a minute? Something like that.
Yeah.
So you can pull yourself out of class. You're, we'll say, a junior in high school. You got a minute and a half to give yourself advice for the future. Now, before you start in with money, it can't be like invest in Google or anything like
Right, right,
that, or
right,
remember,
right,
nothing
right.
like that. Just a
Can't
general,
anything specific, but general is
correct,
okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
general things. If you follow your heart or whatever, something like that. But you also, there are three conditions. You got first off, well, four, I guess. You got 90
Can't only
seconds.
share
First,
one thing.
no, you can share as much as you want, but you also have to convince yourself that you are you. You are him. That you're the same guy, and you're going to be rattled as a 17-year-old. Like, I don't believe what I'm saying.
Okay.
So you got to convince yourself. You got to, or your younger self. You got to give the advice, and then you have to leave with like a flourish, so
Yeah.
that it's instilled with him that this was a magical thing
Yeah.
that will never happen again.
All right.
What do you got? How would
All
you?
right. Let me set the timer. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Ryan, I am you from the future. Here's how you know. One time you peed in your Chicago Bears trash can. Okay. Now, don't try to impress anyone with your electives in college. Electives, make them fun. Do golf, not chemistry. What are you doing? Don't do it. Start stand up as soon as you can. Don't blow money. Just start investing as early as you can. Put it in the S&P, whatever. Don't be a dummy.
That's it. That's all you got. That's pretty good. I'm not saying it's bad, but like, what's your flourish
I got
for the
44
end?
seconds. I got 44
Okay.
seconds.
All right.
And make sure you write this down. Just being honest and sincere, spend more time with your family than work. That's like I had a therapist who said no one is on their deathbed and they're like, I wish I'd worked harder.
Okay.
Everyone wants to, I can't think of anything else.
Anything about relationships? Anything like that?
Oh yeah, it's gonna take a while.
You got about what 10 seconds left?
Try to be more understanding. That's 1:30.
What's your flourish? How do you leave? What's you can just
probably just like a cape
smoke
move, like Darkwing Duck.
Oh God, that's pretty good. All right. Okay. All right. How about
What would you say?
Would you?
I'll set.
Would you want to be? Would you want to have?
Are you not going to do it?
Yeah, in a second. Would you want to have like the power as a love maker to always completely and utterly satisfy this person that you're with, but every time you do it, and you do it every time, you have to say, "I learned that from my dad."
Absolutely not. I don't
They're
think
completely satisfied.
I don't think anyone would want that. I mean, that's so scarring. There's no way. There's no way
like they've never been more satisfied, and you're just How about this?
I mean, if that phrase gets around,
and they always ask like, "How did you do that?" Oh, it's never happened like that before. And then you have to say, "I learned that from my dad."
Absolutely not. I mean,
no?
Good Lord, man, no.
All right, okay.
I no, that's too weird.
Well, you also didn't know about the donkey show, but
yeah. What would you say to yourself? Can we do that?
I mean, you hit a couple of them. First off, I'd be like,
no, let's see it because you got to convince them and everything. So I'm gonna hit the timer. Ready? 3, 2,
okay.
1.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. I'm your future self. You know that because at one point you burst an eardrum because you let Steph, my brother, put a safety pin down your ear when you were in the back of a station wagon, and you still have that pillow. It looks like the one that Abraham Lincoln died on. At that point, there's no way that my younger self doesn't know who I am. And then I'll just be like, look, forget about math, okay? Take the easiest math. It doesn't have to be honors math. Take the easiest math the rest of high school. Take the easiest math throughout all of college. You really only need basic multiplication. That's all you're ever going to need. Secondly, sure, start the stand up. Third, stop thinking that you need to have a girlfriend. Just date freely forever until you meet a wife that you're probably going to meet around 30 or so. Just don't attach any like significance to having a girlfriend or being in a relationship. Just have fun and be okay with it. Like, as long as everyone is, just go and have a good time. That is what I would say. And then to like my flourish would be that I would walk out like that girl walks down the stairs in The Exorcist. That like when she walks, like she's like a contortionist or something. They hired one for the day from the circus, and she walks upside down on all fours.
You're out of time. You're out of time.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do.
Hold on. So you're telling me that your current self can go down steps like that?
Well, you can't do a Darkwing Duck in real life, but this is a magical thing.
I could do the move, but then I just walk out.
All right. Well, this
But
is
I
a
would wear a
magic thing.
cape to the meeting. I'd wear a cape to
Mm.
the meeting.
All right. Well, I'm doing the exorcist thing because then I'm not forgetting anything.
Man,
On the other hand, there is a risk that I'll forget everything except for that walk, but I'm willing to take the risk.
I I've always thought that capes should come back. I love a cape, and when I see it in a movie or a TV show, and then when I had like a joint birthday party here at my birthday, someone was wearing a cape, and it just looked so douchey in person.
He wore a cape like
It was a woman.
as a
It was a
joke.
woman.
Was it Halloween or
Nah. It's just like a fancy person in a cape.
how do you sell that? That's
Well,
like
my
riding up
my
on a
dogs
penny
barked at 4
farthing.
people ever, and that was one of them. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You know what would be
Maybe it's a
cool to have
cloak.
for a
I don't know if there's a
birthday?
difference between a cape and a cloak, but
Just not in my mind. Only in like Elvish culture is there a difference. Like you get just like a D&D person, they'll hardcore disagree with me. I love like
yeah.
kids always get. I just had a birthday. I was asked over and over what I want. I didn't want anything, but you know what? I would have wanted. I would
Hold
have
on, when's
loved
your
to have
birthday? I thought it was.
a few weeks ago. It was a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, what am I
I would-
saying? I sent you a gallon of glue. That's right.
You did, and I really still appreciate the $11 that I got when I returned it. So. I would love to have a magician come to my house just for like a few of us.
We did
I
for
think
the
that would
birthday.
be so fun.
Joel Ward, who's an incredible magician, was doing magic in our yard. It was
Good.
fucking
Close-up
amazing.
magic is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
How many people were there though?
probably 100.
That's so. How was he?
I mean, Joel Ward's amazing. If you've never seen him, look him up. He's ridiculous.
God, that would be. I
Yeah.
get so into that. Every like kids party I've ever taken my kids to, occasionally there's a magician. I love it, man.
World class magic in LA. I've told you this.
There was great magic in LA. Yeah.
Nick, are you ready to play Rank Them?
Yeah, man.
Rank Them is a game where I give you 3 characteristics. They are for a person who is perfect for you in every way except for these 3 defining characteristics. These, like I said, they are permanent. You cannot, if it's like has a Dali mustache, you can't just be like, oh, we'll shave it. No, it's permanent.
Okay.
You have to rank these characteristics.
You
Number
say that
1.
as if I've ever disrespected your rules. If there's
No, it's
anyone
for
who's a stickler
listeners,
for
dummy. It's
hypothetical
for
rules,
listeners. It's for
No.
listeners.
No,
not
that was for
you.
me. That was for me. Look, I'm someone who, when I say on a scale of 1 to 10, and somebody says 12, it really bothers me. That is a pet peeve of mine. When somebody is like 15, 11, and then they laugh really hard. I'm like, it's an original thing. It drives me crazy, but not because everybody says that. It's because you're not respecting the rules of the question that I'm asking. So you don't have
Right.
to tell me. Okay.
Right.
All
Okay.
right,
No,
okay.
it's for the listeners.
All right,
Like I
what's the
said,
first
it's not
one?
for you. Number 1, you live in a city. However, she will only travel by horse. So you see that in a couple neighborhoods in LA, in Atwater and in the Rancho Equestrian District of Burbank. People ride horses through the neighborhoods. It's that scenario.
Do I get to pick
but-
the neighborhood like that, or is it like they just no? You're gonna be in
Yeah, I mean,
Pittsburgh.
yeah, you can move to a horse neighborhood, but she's using it all over the whole city. Anything's within your home city limits, she's horsing. All right.
All right.
Every day. That's number 1. Number 2, every day glues your hands together with Elmer's glue, then slowly peels the glue off over the course of an hour. Every day, forever.
Glues
So you
my
gotta-
hands together, not
Your
mine and
hands.
hers.
Yours. So for you got to let it dry properly, and then she pulls it apart, and then she'll slowly peel the glue off every day.
All right, that probably would be kind of satisfying in a way, but every day it's a
So
bit
we got
much. Okay,
horse.
what's the third?
We got glue. Number 3 is giant ass bush, not giant ass bush, giant
Ooh.
ass bush.
No,
So
I got it. Back bush,
bush coming out of her butt crack.
big time back bush.
I
Okay,
don't know
well-
if it's even possible, but I don't know if it's possible, but
Yeah, I mean it's funny because there's so many contradictions, and obviously this whole rank them is contradictions because you're starting out by saying this is your dream person, yet these are the 3 most horrific things I could think of. And
Right.
so obviously they're not my dream person if they have back bush. Certainly something as big as what you're describing, like something you have to like navigate through. So that's the worst. The backwoods, like,
Which
I can't. Like, it breaks the hypothetical. I can't
wouldn't it?
those
I
things
know.
can't coexist. They just
It's
can't.
easily no, but it does. It does. It's the same person. It's the same person as the horse person, except no horse, but has
Right,
that.
but at the same, and I don't like to be this person, but it's not the same person as the horse person. If you have a backbush, you're not that person anymore. You can still, like, you can glue hands together and do the horse thing and still be this perfect partner, I guess. Although that's kind of tough. But this makes
I'm
it like,
surprised
no,
Donkey
no,
Show
no,
over here didn't actually want this one.
no. This is like that. The backbush is like, is the worst I've ever heard. There's no way.
I don't know.
I thought
When
the
I
person
thought
who
of it,
was
I
the
started
fan of
laughing like a maniac.
like the Lakers, Yankees, like all the best sports teams at any given time, I
Yeah.
thought that was the worst. But this is
You thought
worse.
that was worse than Hitler mustache?
Probably, yeah. Just a like a perennial like bandwagon fan of all sport. I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Like I just
All
have
right.
zero respect for that soulless fuck.
So what's number 2?
Backbush is number 3. Number 2 would be the horse. I mean, come on, man. Like I can't even ask
Two's
you
the
to go.
horse.
2's the
Okay.
horse. Like especially you said we have to live in a city, and the only way
Mhm.
you get around is by horse. So I mean, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I'm assuming maybe they have a DUI or something, several DWIs. But if they just
Loves horses,
choosing
man.
to, I mean,
Horsophile. They call them equiphiles.
so I have to run every AREN, every one of them? Like, unless
No,
like you
I
can
mean,
put some of the stuff in the saddlebags?
she'll get on the horse and mosey down to CVS. You know?
Yeah, that's number 2. The glue is number 1. Glue's number 1.
Yeah.
I feel like I can
You know,
work with that. Be like, okay, while my hands are glued together, I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna do my exercise bike. That's what
I
I'll
mean,
do. I'm being forced to work out
yeah.
my exercise bike.
I do. I have the same number 3 because it's so bad.
Yeah, it is. It's awful.
I thought this was going to be more competitive because I'm also like very afraid of horses.
What?
I'm not. Yeah, we talked about this. I'm not afraid of many other animals, but horses. Well, actually, wild animals. Yes, I love them, but I like my distance.
Is it
I'm as
because their
afraid of a
face is so surprisingly big? Something about a horse in a
it's because the
have you seen a
horses. Yeah,
giraffe's face?
they're
Just like it's so far away.
yeah.
You're like, oh, that's just a
That's
proportionate face, and then it comes close, and you're like, I don't like how big your head is. It's the size
they're so big.
of a
Their
large
heads
lamp.
are torso size, human torso
Yeah,
size, maybe even
I
bigger.
don't like it.
No, I mean they're so strong. They can kick you off. They can throw you. They're temperamental. They get spooked easily. I'm not getting on a horse. If you guys want to ride a horse, you can ride a horse. Even in the old days, if they were like, hey, now we got a way to get from this town to the next town in under a day. It's called a horse. I would go. I'm gonna walk. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's just
see you in a few
not
days.
worth it. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh.
Although I feel like that's pretty easy to say now. You don't have to face the consequences.
God.
I think if it were in the 1800s or something, like I think you'd learn how to ride a horse
Nah.
or
No.
fucking donkey and move to Mexico.
A wagon that's pulled by a horse. Sure. I'm not riding a horse.
So
No
you're
scenario.
fine whipping the horse. You just don't want to sit on it and whip it.
No, I'd talk to it. I say, "Come on, buddy.
Yeah, no,
Come on,
it's not gonna work.
buddy."
It's not gonna work.
Just scratch its belly a little bit.
Whenever I went horseback riding, I'd do the same thing. Like, I don't want to kick it that hard. And they're just like over and over, like, dude, this guy, the horse name is Doc. It's 80 years old. He doesn't feel anything. Certainly not like a 13-year-old.
Then why kick it if it doesn't feel anything?
Yeah, it's a great point. Great point. That's why we just wandered.
I think we're going to have to go the same order. And I was truly up in the air when I named this, but then just picturing that third one, the ass bush, it's just
No.
I'd kill myself within a week.
I don't know what's worse is if they had an ass bush and no bush up front, or if they had an ass bush and a front bush.
Where it looks like there was a mix up at the factory.
I don't know which one is worse.
Yeah. I don't know, but I guess glue's number 1. That sounds horrible to me too. But that's gonna be number 1.
I mean,
And
it's
I believe that is
maybe
our
the
show.
easiest one you've ever said.
Anything you'd like to advertise, Nick? Cheez-Its?
Oh, I'm at the Kenosha Comedy Club next Friday, I think.
Wisconsin. That would be on the 21st of March.
Yeah, I don't think
What
it's
else?
Wisconsin. I hope not. God, I better
Kenosha's
double check
Wisconsin.
if it is Wisconsin. No, I think there's also another Kenosha.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, Nick, with sort of something to promote, he doesn't have any of the
That's
details.
generally how it is. Look, I like to keep, if I haven't made this perfectly clear, I don't want to know anyone that's coming to these shows. Like my kid, people who work at my kid's school back, wait, when are you going to invite us? I'm like, I'm never going to invite you. You're never going to know. I'm sorry that you found out in the first place.
Don't tell anyone in your personal life. Absolutely not. Well, I will be at the Comedy Nest in Montreal, March 20th through 22nd.
There you go.
In May, I will be in Toronto, Ottawa, and Hamilton, possibly Philadelphia, and maybe another city too. That's kind of being worked out now. Also, my special Live from DC is on Amazon Prime, and you can get my my book, actually, The Party, on Amazon as well. It feels
How's it
very
doing?
relevant
How's it doing
to
on
our current
Amazon?
political. Could always have more sales. I sell a lot more after shows than online.
Sure,
people
sure.
really buy them after shows, and then online, it's.
How many are you
It's
taking? Like if you go out of town, you fly out of town, are you filling a suitcase with them?
This isn't for the listeners. This is for us. Okay, bye.
Okay.
Just a couple of guys palling around, coming out of your speakers, a beautiful sound. They debate, berate, and have a laugh or two. Connor v. Cobb, for me and for you. La 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 la, la 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 la. Connor v. Cobb, for me and you.
Ryan and Nick. Nick and Ryan. The Scoundrels of the Hour.